Okay, once again, welcome back to the channel, and we are here to start the second part of this chapter. In the first video, we discussed about the meeting of Mrs. Pomfrey with Dr. Harriet. Dr. Harriet is the narrator of this chapter, and he has beautifully described this story uh, about a dog whose name is Tricky. Tricky was so healthy and he was too much fatty. It seems that legs are coming out of his body everywhere, and he was unable to step a few steps early in the morning along with his mistress, Mrs. Pomfrey. When it may be due to network congestion, but I hope optimistically that you could hear me after some time. Mrs. Pomfrey, when she saw the condition of her dog, she immediately visited Mr. Harriet. When Mrs. Pomfrey visited Dr. Mr. Harriet, he suggested that condition of dog is not well. He may be suffering from, uh, you know, lack of nutrition. Okay, kuposhan ka shikar, and it was due to excessive amount of food that she was offering the dog because she loves a lot as her own child. She looks after the dog as her own child, and she provides what the dog desires to eat and desire to have. She doesn't care about the loss and the harms of the side effects of excessive food because everything which is more than need is just like the poison. Okay, so she was looking after the dog as her own child, and the compassion and affection of a mother, they they are not worried about the upcoming result. Okay, they are blind in the love of their own children. They try their best to give and provide all that what their child require to eat, to wear, or anything else, etc. and etc. So Mrs. Pomfrey was not caring the health and the excessive amount of food, and it was causing excessive fat in the body of dog. So he was unable to move a few steps. Okay, when he was moving along with his mistress early in the morning, he was gasping for breath. Okay, he was hardly breathing. Uh, when Mr. Harriet was there early in the morning and he was noticing the condition of dog, he was worried about the health. Okay, he seems that the dog is about to die due to excessive fat and lack of breathing. So he suggested Mrs. Pomfrey, and Mrs. Pomfrey agreed with him that you are a doctor and you will suggest me positively. So she decided to hospitalize the dog in the hospital of Mr. Harriet to be operated. Okay. So it was the question as the very beginning of this chapter, that was the dog operated by the doctor? Was the food that was being sent by Mrs. Pomfrey to the hospital was given to the dog, etc. So let us go through the next part of this chapter and know what happens next. I watched their progress with growing concern. Tricky was tottering along in his little tweed coat. He had a whole wardrobe of these coats for the cold weather, and a raincoat for the wet days. He struggled on, drooping in his harness. I thought it would not be long before I heard from Mrs. Pomfrey. Okay, I watched their process, the growing concern. The doctor was watching the progress of, you know, dog and his health. Tricky was tottering, gasping along in his little tweed coat. Means, you know, lolling the tongue outside, dog gasps for breathing. It seems that they are suffering from suffocation of oxygen. Okay, and he had a whole wardrobe of these coats, and for the cold weather, and the raincoat for the wet days. I mean, the dog was being given and provided a luxurious and standard, lifestyle by Mrs. Pomfrey, because he was offered wardrobe of these coats as well as cold weather and a raincoat for the wet days. Okay, when we go in the rural areas, then we find so many people suffering and surviving from poverty. They do not have different kinds of dresses and uniform to wear according to the seasonal changing. But the dog, even he was an animal, however, he was being given all types of dresses, seasonal dresses, whether it is raining, whether it is cold or winter, whether it is summer, anything. I mean, he had all types of dresses to wear according to seasonal changing or climate changing. He struggled on. He was struggling. He was hardly moving. He was hardly breathing, dropping in his harness. I thought it not be long before I heard Mrs. Pomfrey. What happened when Mrs. Pomfrey met the doctor, Mr. Harriet? Let me erase the underlines what I have drawn. The expected outcome within a few days. Okay, Mrs. Pomfrey was distraught. Distraught means troubled. Okay, she was disappointed. She was so worried about the health of her dog. The expected call came within a few days. Okay, what Mr. Harriet, the doctor or the narrator of this chapter, expected about the condition that was about to happen with dog was coming within a few days. I mean, same thing happened with the dog that मिस्टर हैरियस एक्सपेक्टेड, जैसा उन्होंने उम्मीद किया था वैसा कुछ ही दिनों में होने लगा। जैसे कि सुबह के समय जब वो अपने मालकिन के साथ वॉकिंग पे जाता था तो ऐसा लगता था कि वो चल नहीं पा रहा है, हाँफ रहा है, टंग बाहर कर ले रहा था और इतना मोटा कि बाप रे, मतलब थोड़ा सा भी वो मूव नहीं कर पा रहा था। ठीक है, तो जो भी मिस्टर हैरियट बीइंग अ डॉक्टर ऑब्जर्व्ड एंड वॉच्ड द कंडीशन ऑफ डॉग, इट केम टू बी ट्रू विद इन अ फ्यू डेज। थोड़े ही समय में उसका रिजल्ट भी आ गया, जैसे किसी की हालत देखकर बताया जा सके कि हाँ ये कुछ ही दिन के मेहमान हैं या फिर कुछ दिन में इनको बहुत प्रॉब्लम होने लगेगी। तो ये चीज़ें कहीं ना कहीं सही साबित हुई और ऐसा हुआ कि मिसेस पम्फेरी वॉज डिस्ट्रॉट, वो बहुत परेशान हो गई। क्यों परेशान हो गई? ट्रिकी डिड नथिंग। ओके, ट्रिकी कुछ नहीं खा रहा था। रिफ्यूज्ड व्हेन हिज फेवरेट डिशेज एंड बिसाइड्स, इसके अलावा वेदर इट इज हिज फेवरेट आर नॉट, ही वाज रिफ्यूजिंग ऑल दैट। ही वाज नॉट एक्सेप्टिंग इवन अ सिंगल बाउल ऑफ फूड, वो एक कटोरा भी खाना नहीं खा रहा था। द एक्सपेक्टेड call came within a few days. Mrs. Pomfrey distraught. She was troubled because Tricky would not eating anything. He refused whatever, even it is his favorite dish, and besides, he had bouts of vomiting. Okay, he was frequently doing vomiting only, nothing else. कुत्ता बार बार वोमिटिंग किए जा रहा था। ही स्पेंट ऑल हिज टाइम लाइंग ऑन अ रग, वो एक मैट पे हमेशा लेटा होता था। पैंटिंग मीन्स हाँफते हुए। डिड नॉट वांट टू गो फॉर वॉक्स एंड ही डजंट डिजायर टू हैव अ वॉक अर्ली इन द मॉर्निंग अलोंग विद हिज मिस्ट्रेस। Didn't want to do anything else, means he was motionless. Okay, he was completely motionless and exhausted. He doesn't want to move us even a single step out of his, you know, stable or cabin, you can say. I had made my plans in advance. The only way was to get Ricky out of the house for a period. I suggested that he be hospitalized for about a fortnight to be kept under the observation. Okay, Doctor Mr. Harriet, the narrator of this chapter, he suggested Mrs. Pomfrey uh, that the dog must be to be hospitalized uh, under my observation. Okay, and I'll watch the condition of this dog, what is going on with this poor little creature, and maybe he will be recovering from his terrible condition to be normal, because the dog has been abnormal. कुत्ते की जो कंडीशन थी वो एबनॉर्मल हो चुकी थी, एंड ही वाज पैंटिंग, गैस्पिंग फॉर ब्रीदिंग, वो सांस भी नहीं ले पा रहा था, ही वाज फीलिंग सफोकेशन. ओके, द पुअर लेडी ऑलमोस्ट स्वून्ड, जो पुअर लेडी थी वो पूरी तरह से दुखी हो गई थी. ओके, आई मीन बेहोश होना कह सकते हैं आप, ठीक है, अनकॉन्शियस होना. इट इज द कंडीशन और द phase of human being in which they become unconscious. Okay, it is cause of a great shock, a great sorrow or accident in their life. Maybe the lady was heartily connected with the dog as a mother connected with her own child. She was sure he would pine and die if he did not see her every day. Okay, this was the misunderstanding of, not misunderstanding, you can say it was a serious problem. That dog was suffering and he was ill. Okay, so Mrs. Pomfrey thinks that he'll die if I'll not look after him every day. अगर मैं उसकी देखभाल रोज नहीं करती तो कुत्ता मर जाएगा. और ये हमारे लिए कुत्ता हो सकता है, आपके लिए कुत्ता हो सकता है. ओके, बट द ओनर ऑफ द डॉग इज द मदर ऑफ दैट डॉग. उस कुत्ते की जो मालकिन है कहीं ना कहीं उसके माँ जैसी उसको ट्रीट करती हैं. अभी मैंने बताया कि जब आप पिछड़े इलाकों में जाएंगे तो बहुत सारे बच्चे ऐसे मिलेंगे वुड बी wandering without sleeper, barefoot, without proper clothes or dresses, without you know not too much caring on behalf of their parents. But the dog was being offered every you know needful things of his daily life. Even he had seasonal garments. उसको मौसम के हिसाब से कपड़े भी दिए गए थे. ठीक है, ठंडी तो ठंडी का कपड़ा, गर्मी तो गर्मी का कपड़ा, बारिश तो बारिश का. रेनकोट भी थी उसके पास. इवन हम लोगों के पास तो रेनकोट भी नहीं होती है कि चलो एक दिन बारिश में भीग लिया जाएगा, कोई बात नहीं. सो वी शुड नॉट बी वरीड अबाउट द लॉस ऑफ मनी एंड परचेजिंग अ रेनकोट. तो ये थी डॉग की कंडीशन. काफ़ी लग्जरियस लाइफ वो जी रहा था. आगे क्या होता है चलिए देखते हैं. But I took a firm line. Tricky was very ill, and this was the only way to save him. Tricky was very ill. He was seriously very ill. बहुत बीमार था. And his condition was very critical. He may be die at any time, and it was only the way to save him. In fact, I thought it is best to take him without delay to the hospital. I mean, it is better to visit the hospital without delay. बिना देर किए हॉस्पिटल को विजिट करना ही इसका इलाज है. Otherwise, he may die any time, any day. What happens next? Followed by Mrs. Pomfrey's wailing, and I marched out of the car, carrying the little dog wrapped in a blanket. Ab, Mr. Harriet, took the dog in his car and carried to his hospital on the consent of Mrs. Pomfrey. Mrs. Pomfrey gave a consent that her dog must be hospitalized and observed by the doctor. So the doctor, Mr. Harriet, took the dog in his car and carried his hospital. अपने हॉस्पिटल में लाए. The entire staff was roused and Max rushed in and out bringing his day bed. पूरा स्टाफ जो था वो एकदम पागल सा हो गया था. Watching the luxurious bed of the dog, his night bed, favorite cushions, उसकी जो तकिया थी, toys, rubber things, breakfast bowl, उसके जो नाश्ते का कटोरा था, lunch bowl अलग से था, super bowl अलग से था. Realizing that the car would never hold all the stuff, ऐसा लग रहा था कि ये जो कार है ये इतना सामान तो कभी नहीं लाई होगी. ठीक है, वाह भाई, कुत्ता था आकि महाराजा था वो. ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे कुत्ता नहीं है, कोई इंसान है, इतनी उसकी व्यवस्था थी. ठीक है, मतलब हर तरह का बर्तन है. लंच का बाउल अलग था, ब्रेकफास्ट का बाउल अलग था. क्यों? उसके बाद सफर का बाउल अलग है. रियलाइजिंग दैट द कार वुड नेवर होल्ड ऑल दिस स्टफ मींस हिज कार, डॉक्टर्स कार हैड नेवर कैरीड दैट मच ऑफ स्टफ्स, चीजें. ठीक है, ये देख करके सारे लोग काफी हैरान हो गए, पागल से हो गए कि इतनी अच्छी व्यवस्था है इस कुत्ते की. वाओ, I would like, other people would like to be just at the place of that dog. Okay, I started to drive away. मैं धीरे धीरे कुत्ते को लेकर जाने लगा. As I moved off, जैसे ही मैं वहां से चला, Mrs. Pomfrey with a despairing cry threw an armful of the little coats through the window. armful, हाथों को फैलाए हुए. आप लोगों ने देखा होगा फिल्मों में जब लोग रोते हैं या फिर कोई जा रहा होता है और कोई उसके लिए रो रहा होता है. ओके, when somebody departed from somebody else, then they give an expression of armful. हाथ को फैलाए हुए चिल्लाते हैं लोग. तो मिसेस पम्फेरी भी ऐसे ही चिल्ला रही थी, रो रही थी बेचारी, हाथ फैला करके कि मेरा कुत्ता, मेरा बच्चा, मेरा बेबी, मेरा डॉगी जा रहा है हॉस्पिटल, पता नहीं जिएगा कि मरेगा. इसके लिए वो काफ़ी परेशान थी और रोए जा रही थी. ठीक है, तो कहीं ना कहीं सुनने में तो काफ़ी मज़ा आ रहा है, लेकिन when we would be passionately connected with the feeling of that woman, we would also be worried and so sorry after knowing the condition, what a mother can feel uh, at the moment of her own child's departure. So same thing was there. Mrs. Pomfrey was looking after that dog as her own child. Now I looked in the mirror before I turned the corner. I mean last corner, okay, where the doctor could see the window from. He saw that everybody was in tears. Okay, all the people were crying in the sting of departure, because the dog was carried to the hospital by Mr. Harriet. Now what happens in the last paragraph? Out on the road, I glanced down at the pathetic little animal gasping on the seat by my side. Okay, they were gasping. I glanced down at the pathetic little animal. मैंने उस कुत्ते को देखा अपनी कार में, छोटे से जानवर को. गैस्पिंग, बेचारा हाँफ रहा था. ऑन द सीट पर, बाय माय साइड, मेरी तरफ होकर के. आई पैटेड द हेड. आई पैटेड मीन्स थपथपाना. सर प्लीज चेक माय अटेंडेंस, इंश्योर माय प्रेजेंस, थैंक यू. मदन मोहन मिश्रा. Okay, I have counted your presence. Okay, as I admit the students, first of all I count their presence in the attendance sheet, so be sure. Now I patted the head and Tricky made a brave effort to wag his tail. Wag means peek and shake, हिलाना. ठीक है. जैसे ही मैंने कुत्ते के सिर पे थोड़ा सा हाथ लगाया, थपथपाया, कुत्ते ने बड़ी बहादुरी से अपने पूंछ को थोड़ा सा उठाया और हिलाया। ठीक है। पुअर ओल्ड लैड, बेचारा, गरीब, कमजोर जानवर। आई सेड, यू हैव नॉट अ किक इन यू, बट आई थिंक आई नो अ क्यूर फॉर यू। मैं जानता हूं कि तुम्हें अपने अंदर थोड़ी सी भी खुशी और कंफर्टेबिलिटी नहीं महसूस हो रही है, बट आई थिंक, मुझे लगता है, आई नो अ क्यूर फॉर यू, मैं जानता हूँ कि तुम्हारा इलाज क्या है। ठीक है। और हकीकत में ये था कि वो जो कुत्ता था वो सिर्फ एक्सेसिव फूड के कारण उतना बीमार पड़ गया था। भाई जाहिर सी बात है, आप कुछ लोगों को देखे होंगे, जब वो बहुत अधिक खाना खाने लगते हैं तो इतने मोटे हो जाते, इतने मोटे हो जाते कि तमाम बीमारियां उनको हो जाती हैं। कारण क्या होता है? एक्स्ट्रा फूड। Same thing was there. The dog was suffering from, fatty liver, or excess fat around his body. अपने शरीर में इतना फैट वो खा खा के इकट्ठा कर लिया था। ये भी एक प्रॉब्लम है कि जब इंसान बहुत खाया जाता है, ज़रूरत से ज़्यादा खाया जाता है, तो कहीं ना कहीं उसका स्टमक जो है सेंसिटिव नहीं है। ठीक है। He doesn't feel that how much amount of food he must take at a time, and the dog was eating every time whenever he was offered food. जब भी, even it is the time of right, day, evening, dinner, supper, noon, every time he was accepting food. हर टाइम अगर कोई दे दिया, खाने लगता था। ठीक है। तो कहीं ना कहीं ये भी एक बीमारी है कि हमारा जो लीवर है, हमारी जो शरीर है, वो सेंसिटिव नहीं है, हमारा जो डाइजेशन है वो सेंसिटिव नहीं है, दैट हाउ मच डू वी नीड, हमें कितने की ज़रूरत है, ये चीज़ उस कुत्ते में नहीं था। तो इस पार्ट ऑफ द स्टोरी से हमें ये चीज़ कहीं ना कहीं मोरल के तरह आ रही है कि हमें भी ज़रूरत से ही कोई काम करना चाहिए, ज़रूरत भरी खाना चाहिए। एवरीथिंग दैट वी डू अकॉर्डिंग टू नीड, इट मस्ट बी अकॉर्डिंग टू नीड। हमें कोई भी चीज़ करनी चाहिए, वी शुड डू एनीथिंग, ओके, अकॉर्डिंगली, हमें नीड के अकॉर्डिंग करना चाहिए। अदरवाइज we would be in the same phase of the position as in which the dog was. Okay, that's it for this video, and we would be going through the next part of this chapter in the next episode. Until, stay safe and stay home. Now you will read and find out the answers for these questions. Okay, is the narrator as rich as Tricky's mysteries? क्या जो नरेटर है उतना धनी है? आई मीन मिस्टर हैरियट उतने ही धनी है जितना कि ट्रिकी की मालकिन है? तो नहीं भाई, ऐसा नहीं है। हाउ डज ही ट्रीट द डॉग? वो डॉग को कैसे ट्रीट करते हैं? वाई इज ही टेम्प्टेड टू कीप ट्रिकी ऑन द परमानेंट गेस्ट, एज अ परमानेंट गेस्ट? अब वो कैसे जो है कुत्ते को एक परमानेंट गेस्ट की तरह रखना चाहते थे। ठीक है। वाई डज मिसेस पंफेरी थिंक द डॉग्स रिकवरी इज अ ट्रियम्फ ऑफ सर्जरी? क्यों उनको ऐसा लगता है कि ये जो रिकवरी होगी ये सर्जरी के बाद की एक विजय होगी? क्योंकि वो उस डॉग से बड़ा प्यार करती थी। ठीक है। तो आप अपने क्रिएशन के अकॉर्डिंग इसका आंसर लिखेंगे। कल मैं आपसे पूछूंगा, एक एक क्वेश्चन का आंसर पूछूंगा और एक एक बच्चे को रिप्लाई करना होगा। देयर आफ्टर आई विल गो थ्रू द नेक्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ दिस स्टोरी। विश यू ऑल द बेस्ट। बाय बाय।